You're listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, episode 52, The Power of Context.
If you want a particular result in your life, but you're unable to get it, tune in to start training your brain and expanding your emotional intelligence to unlock the most powerful and underutilized performance tool that we have. It's the most important work you could do because it affects every area of your life.
Hello there and welcome back. In this session, we're going to explore the concept of context. In the world of counselling and psychology, few concepts are as transformative and yet often overlooked as the importance of context. While facts, feelings, thoughts, and behaviours are commonly dissected, the environment in which these occur is sometimes ignored or underemphasised. Context is the invisible thread that binds all human experience, shaping our perceptions, interpretations, and actions. When we fail to explore the broader context of any situation, whether that be external or internal, we become vulnerable to distorted thinking and all the variations across the spectrum that we typically succumb to, such as, for example, the all or nothing, black and white thinking, when we view situations in extremes, the tendency to overgeneralize in seeing a single negative event as a pattern that will continue to happen. And it might sound something like, I didn't get the job, I'll never succeed in my career. Or we might engage in mental filtering, where we focus solely on the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring the positives. I got one piece of critical feedback, so the whole project is a disaster, for example. Then there's discounting the positives, where we'll go and dismiss them by insisting they don't count. They said I did a good job, but they were probably just being nice. We might even incorporate some mind reading or even fortune telling into the situation, where we assume that we know what the others are thinking. She didn't text back, therefore she must be mad at me, or predicting that the future will turn out badly, which lends itself then to catastrophizing, in blowing things out of proportion and imagining the worst possible outcome. If I make a mistake at work, I'll get fired and lose everything. And when we believe something must be true because we feel it so strongly, then we succumb to emotional reasoning. I feel anxious, so something bad must be about to happen. Or we set up such rigid rules in shooting all over ourselves into submission and shame. I should always be calm and in control. On top of that, we'll go and assign global negative labels to ourselves and others. I made a mistake, I'm an idiot. And if that's not bad enough, we might also engage in the blame game, blaming ourselves and others for things that are outside of our control. It's my fault that my partner's unhappy. These distortions are often automatic and unconscious. And they all lack the broader concept of context in not seeing things as they are, but in taking one small part and making up the rest. We don't experience life. We experience the life we focus on. We pick apart, take it out of its context, and set about creating our experience of it. So it's not about what is actually happening in a situation or circumstance with all its context. It's about what we then go and do with it. We are the creative medium here, transforming it into something completely different. When we lose context, we reduce ourselves to living in a contracting mindset, leading to a breakdown in our relationships, including the most intimate one we have, the relationship with ourselves. So let's take a look into the danger of a decontextualized mind. With a practical example, imagine a woman named Priya who has just received a curt email from her manager. It reads, "Need your report, send it ASAP." Priya's heart sinks. She instantly feels underappreciated, micromanaged, and anxious. Her thoughts start to spiral. He doesn't respect me. He's never liked my work. I'm going to get fired, and on they go. But what's really happening here? Priya has jumped to conclusions without exploring the full picture. The context, which could be manager's workload, his communication style, or even possible external stresses that we know nothing about. They are entirely missing from her analysis. Instead, she focuses in on the message and interprets it through the lens of her own insecurities and previous experiences. This is a classic case of emotional reasoning and mind reading. Both are forms of cognitive distortion. Without context, possibilities, flexibility, and empathy shrinks and is replaced by rigid interpretations and reactive emotions. So what is a contracting mindset? It's one where our cognitive and emotional range starts to tighten. We begin to see situations in those black and white terms, unable to entertain multiple perspectives. This type of mindset often thrives on certainty at the expense of curiosity. So instead of asking, what might be going on here? We declare, I know exactly what this means. And from a neuropsychological standpoint, this tendency can be understood through the lens of the amygdala hijack. When we perceive threat, whether that be emotional, social, or physical, our brain's limbic system springs into action. Adrenaline and cortisol rush through our bodies, narrowing our focus to the perceived source of danger. And while this is useful or was useful for survival in the wild way back, it has become maladaptive in our modern social context. A misunderstood comment from a friend, for example, is not a saber-toothed tiger, but our brain doesn't always know the difference. This mindset shows up in therapy rooms all the time. A client convinced that their partner is just selfish after being late again, refuses to consider partner's own stress or obligations. Or a teen certain that their parent hates them after being denied permission to go out, is blinded to the protective intent behind the decision. A professional who calls themselves a failure after one missed opportunity overlooks years of progress. A recent university graduate is devastated about making a mistake in her workplace. She misses the context of her age and early stage of career, or how we mostly fail our way to success. In each of these cases, the absence of context results in a narrative that is harsh, one-dimensional, and self-reinforcing. So how do we shift from a contracting mindset to an expanded one? The answer lies in actively seeking context. This means becoming curious about the why and the what else in any given situation. So let's return back to Priya. A session with a counsellor helps her slow down and examine the assumptions she made after reading her manager's email. Her therapist might ask, what do you know about your manager's communication style? Has he ever explicitly criticised your work before? What else might be influencing his tone today? And as Priya explores these questions, she remembers her manager mentioning a tight deadline with the senior executives earlier in the week. She also realises he often sends brief messages, not just to her, but to the whole team. Context begins to emerge, and with it, her emotional reactivity begins to soften. The situation, once charged with threat, now seems more understandable. Her cognitive framework shifts from he's out to get me to he might be stressed and it's not necessarily about me. This is the beginning of emotional flexibility. The other type of context to explore is the relationship we have with ourselves. Just as we project assumptions out onto others, we often do the same internally. We might beat ourselves up for procrastinating, calling it laziness or lack of discipline, without exploring the context behind the behaviour. So consider Tom, a university student struggling to submit his assignments on time. He labels himself as lazy and incapable, which creates feelings that intensify his shame and kills his motivation. In therapy, he begins to unpack the context of his procrastination, which is a fear of failure, unresolved grief after the loss of a loved one, and a perfectionist streak that makes starting anything feel overwhelming. Suddenly, procrastination is no longer just a bad habit, it's a coping mechanism, a response to a complex emotional landscape. In this example, understanding context doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains it. And in that explanation lies the potential for compassion, change, and growth. Then there's the ripple effect that it has on relationships. When context is overlooked, relationships falter. We misinterpret actions, assign blame, and entrench ourselves into our view, which is usually going to be, I am right, they are wrong. So this will lead to unnecessary conflict. It will lead to disconnection and missed opportunities for understanding and intimacy. Imagine a couple, Liam and Ailish, for example, arguing about their finances. Ailish accuses Liam of being irresponsible with money. Liam fires back that Ailish is controlling, and neither is willing to step back and ask, what's really going on here? And through counselling, they begin to uncover the context behind their behaviours. Liam grew up in a household where money was tight and rarely discussed. Spending now feels like freedom, while Ailish, on the other hand, experienced financial instability after her parents' divorce, and controlling the budget gives her a sense of safety. And as these deeper truths come to light, so does understanding and empathy. Their argument is no longer just about numbers. It's about fear, identity, and unmet needs. So let's look at how we lose context in a hyper-connected world. Ironically, in an age of constant information and hyper-connectivity, we're often context deprived. Social media rewards snap judgments, outrage, viral headlines that remove complexity. We scroll past nuance in favor of certainty, reinforcing echo chambers that confirm our biases. Or we see the perfect snapshot in a person's life and we jump to the conclusion that everyone else's life is amazing, which makes ours feel rather crappy. Without context, it's easier to see people and situations only one way. We flatten others into archetypes, the narcissist ex, the toxic parent, the selfish co-worker. And while these labels can offer temporary relief or clarity, they often obscure the full picture and make genuine connection so much more difficult. So how can we begin to reintroduce context into our thinking and relating? Here are a couple of practical strategies for you to try. The first is we want to get into the practice of asking better questions. So before reacting, ask yourself, what else could be true? What might I be missing? What's the story behind the story? We also want to slow down our interpretations. The first thought is often the loudest, but not the most accurate. Delay any judgment. Give time to explore other possibilities and for other explanations to start surfacing. Engage in perspective taking. Try to see the situation from another person's point of view. What might they be thinking, feeling, or fearing? If you were to stand in their shoes, faced with the same circumstances, how might that affect you? Practice self-contextualization, where when you're hard on yourself, ask, what's the context for how I'm behaving right now? Bring compassion to the parts of yourself that you tend to judge harshly. Use therapy or reflective journaling to explore not just what you think, feel, or do, but why. Look for those patterns, the origins, and alternative stories. Don't underestimate the stories we tell ourselves. The cost of context blindness doesn't just distort thinking, it creates suffering. We lose relationships that could be salvaged. We lose opportunities that could be seized and parts of ourselves that could be healed. We become stuck in shame, blame, and black and white thinking. In the words of author Anaïs Nin, we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Without context, we are prone to missee, misjudge, and misrelate. Exploring context is not about excusing harmful behavior either, or denying the objective facts of the situation. It's about deepening our understanding of ourselves and others and the systems that we live within. It's about replacing knee-jerk certainty with curious compassion. It's about moving from a narrow lens to a panoramic view. In counselling, we learn that healing often begins not with answers, but with better questions. When we learn to ask, what else might be true? We open the door to empathy, insight, and change. When I come to a session with a client, I feel as though I'm a researcher, which I just love to do. And I'm seeking to explore as much context as I can. So we can then go and connect the dots over a person's life that then perfectly explains whatever it is the client has come to figure out. And we end up arriving at the revelation that of course it all worked out that way. It all makes perfect logical sense when we can look at it all in its proper context. And there are many layers into this inquiry process, with a depth and life story behind every person and all the threads that go into the forming the fabric and tapestry of the life we weave. In a world that pressures us to reduce, simplify, and judge, choosing to explore context is a radical act of love towards others and towards ourselves. So become a researcher and learn to understand the nature, the context, and the complexities of what it's like to be human. It will help soften you to have compassion for all of it. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next session.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out Mind Scholars. It's my monthly coaching membership where we take all of this work to a much deeper level. We study it and then apply it to the everyday in every way. So if you want to take your life to a whole new level, join me in Mind Scholars over at themindmanual.com/join. I look forward to seeing you there.